Republicans dead. Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
The women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions.
On January 6th of 2021, you had tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting.
So, it's not a right-wing conspiracy theory. It's not QAnon. It's real.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Enemies List podcast. I'm Rick Wilson, your host, and my guest today is a guy I will bet you've seen on Instagram and YouTube. His name is Brent Terhune, and Brent is a brilliant comedian who plays MAGA characters to absolute perfection. And he inhabits this role, I mean, so well that you almost can miss how smart and graceful the arc of the bits really is in terms of the writing and the performance, because it starts out with the bluster and the anger and the whole, all the tropes of the MAGA anger management disorder, and then it descends into sort of this muck of confusion that they all seem to have if you scratch the surface. So Brent, I want to welcome you to the show. Did I get it right? Did I get that? Did I get the arc of the bit right?
Yeah, I think so. It's thanks for having me. First off, it's a guy. I never gave him a name until recently, but it's like I call him the alpha male character. But it's a guy who is like a front seat philosopher. Most of the videos are in a car, like all the other videos are, and it's a guy that has the answers to everything. It's just that they build these big ass trucks so big anymore that none of the answers can seep out. You know.
Right. But I mean, and folks, before we go too deep into the character part, so you are a stand-up comedian and video comedian. Where'd you get your start? What's your origin story?
Yeah, I was bitten by a radioactive comedian.
As one is.
I've been doing stand-up, I think it's like 19 years or something like that. I started when I was in high school, when I was 16, so they had things called coffee houses, and I would go up, and like people would do poetry and acoustic guitar and stuff, and I just went up and did stand-up one time when I was a sophomore, it's crazy because if I would have sucked sophomore year, the rest of my high school career would have been, remember when he did stand-up and wasn't funny, you know? So, and probably there are people saying that now, but pretty quickly after that, I started doing improv at my high school. I hosted Battle of the Bands and did the talent show and all that stuff. So, you know, after that, then I started going to the local comedy clubs, not sneaking in, but I wasn't being like, give me one alcohol, please.
One
you
alcohol.
Know? So, yeah. And nobody said anything. So far, so good.
So what led you, was the Kaepernick bit the first bit you did in this character?
Yeah, I think so. Where he took a knee initially, and it was I just seeing a lot of people burning jerseys and Nikes in their backyard, and I know that they're going to be watching the game next week. You know, and I'm from Indianapolis, so there are a lot of Colts fans doing it. And it was just kind of I did that in my mom's backyard. I bought a bunch of stuff from Goodwill, and a Simba plush like from Lion King, and said I'm not watching the Lions no more, and all that. So it was just me burning stuff, and my intention was never to be like, gotcha. It was like, isn't this funny? And
it's
then
a
people
funny
were
bit,
like,
right?
This guy's an idiot. I'm like, no, but I was trying to be funny. So
your observational comedy here with catching the weirdness and the contradictions of these a particular kind of MAGA male. I mean, I wrote about this the other day for an article I was writing. It's like, it's always the same guy. He's got the goatee. He's got the sunglasses. He's in the Ford F-250. He's got the Punisher T-shirt or the FJB T-shirt or some other kind of, how did you capture their voice? So, I mean, and again, it's like your bits aren't malicious about them, because you always seem to get to their confusion in the end. You always seem to get to their like contradictions in the end.
I guess I'm not trying to be malicious about it, but also sometimes if you just say what they say, it sounds malicious.
It's funny.
You know, like, and I guess it's just like they're a complete contradiction of them. It's the same type of guy that would like whoop your ass for Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like he believes so much in what he believes, but then you're like, that's not really how you should go about disseminating that information. You know, it's sometimes it's just saying what they say back to them. It's like if you do stand up and you have a heckler,
Right.
sometimes just repeating what they said,
Right.
I can't really top the nonsense coming out of your mouth, you know?
I one of the best comebacks that I ever saw a heckler get knocked down. It was at a club in New York, and the guy just says, the heckler stands up and it's like, "You've got a small dick," and whatever. He goes, Could you repeat that just slowly for everybody else in the room?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy just, like, you could see him tilt. You could see him just like short circuit at that moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, it doesn't seem like there's malice here, but it is great observational comedy. Where do you pick up the stories that you do for the bits? Where do you? I mean, how much Fox News do you take every week?
Zero. I watch zero news. I don't even have cable. It's just through the internet, but it's there's no shortage of stuff of people just turning on their camera and talking into because it's with the type of videos I do, people will say, when is your next video? And the honest answer is, I don't really know until something happens. The news cycle, the way it is the last, 6 years or whatever it's been, we have a new thing every day. And especially during COVID, it was like we'd have like 3 things. So that now we look back and I'll just be sitting with my wife and I'm like, is so-and-so still alive? And we'll realize that a huge celebrity died in the middle of COVID, not even having anything to do with COVID. There was so much information that you have to look back and be like, wow, that happened. There was like 8 things that happened in that one day,
It does seem to be the kind of like sensory overload sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of overwhelming nature of everything everywhere all the time, and it just I mean, how do you filter out what when you watch a bit, when you see somebody on, I don't know, Insta or TikTok or or the more MAGA Facebook, and they're doing a they have a live or a clip or something, what is it that like in your brain goes, that's funny, that motherfucker is funny, I'm gonna riff off of this? What like triggers that comedic instinct?
Sometimes it just lends itself to being cartoonishly funny, and that's what the videos I love to do with the character is there were literally one where they were like, people were mad they were taking the guns out of cartoons. Like something so absurd. I'm like, why are you even watching cartoons, and why do you care? And then they didn't go back and change the other ones. You can still enjoy those. But sometimes it just really lends itself to being a funny topic, like having the Pride rockers at Cracker Barrel. Like, there's so much material there with Cracker Barrel to begin with, but like, why does it matter to you? That kind of stuff.
Cracker Barrel is inherently funny. There's just nothing not funny about Cracker Barrel and Chick-fil-A. Jesus chicken, as they say.
I mean, how could you say you didn't get pegged at Cracker Barrel? Like. How is that? I'm not the first to say that, but it writes itself,
Yes, it does. Yeah. I loved your bit that you did. I love the bit that you did when Trump was convicted. That captures, like, they're all in on it. Even the clerk. They're not going to have in that transcript that Trump said, "I love Jesus." Yeah. But
yeah, it's one of those where we already know if Trump should lose the election coming up, that's going to be rigged. That's just
it's pre-rigged already. Yeah.
It's already rigged, but then if he wins, it's not going to be. That's like how it always is, and they've taken it's never surprising anymore. Of like, well, that'll be the one thing that'll lose them all the support.
Yeah,
it never does.
Nope.
And it's. At least that they're consistent. They're not, but they're consistent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a joke. It's call me Tammy Wynette because I want to stand by my man.
My man, right? That I mean, that is so true though, because I mean that adulation of the guy, the cult like bit. I remember in that bit you were like, I'm going to go in this Applebee's now and have an emotional support beer for my president and yours.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they cope with that. Or just like going to the most chain restaurant you can think of, which I do like Applebee's, but it's just like that's where I'm going to go drown my sorrows, is the bar at Applebee's.
but it is, I mean, the comedy of it that I think is kind of important in this moment too is you capture a certain authenticity about them, and again, it is their own style, their affect, their words, their positions. They record this all for us. They put this out there every day. The world we live in now, they put this stuff out there, and I'm sure it's like sometimes like digging through a giant mountain of material for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no shortage of things, and then I gotta pick and choose. Is this worth focusing on? And then also, I don't want to wear my welcome out. So
Sure.
I've dropped videos just enough so that you remember me and still like me, as opposed to, okay, he's beating a dead horse here.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think that there's always a boundary with the amount of comedy material anybody can do. On one thing, you got to eventually move. It's like there was a time when Eddie Murphy did a lot of comedy about crack, and he just moved on from it. You have to at the end.
It sometimes it's just we've reached the zenith of this topic, and maybe move on to a next one, and then let it cool down for a while, and then it makes for a good callback later. You don't have to focus on it, but even in the videos, I have stuff in the back seat sometimes, and I had a white chair. Remember, like it was from a year ago, the Montgomery boat brawl. Like I just had it in the back, and you never make mention of it, but if you see it, you see it. It's just kind of a
right. You know the white
thing.
chair. You know the white chair's lore. It's the white chair's legacy and lore.
Yeah.
So you do the video bits. Are you touring right now? Are you
constantly touring and doing shows. So I do everything from like a comedy club and then I've been doing a lot of private parties. Despite I do the character in my stand-up sometimes, but also I just am able to work clean. So I'm like, I do a lot of private, clean corporate stuff too, and that's it's not the most fulfilling thing sometimes. Sometimes you walk into a place and you think this is going to be work, and then surprisingly, sometimes that stuff is the best show you'll have in a few months. So but I'm always touring and podcasting and all that stuff.
What's your podcast?
I have a couple. I have one called The Field Trip with Brent Terhune. It's topic based. So some of that stuff is I've done like famous last words, famous last meals, parody religions. So it's stuff that I think is already
like
interesting.
Flying Spaghetti Monster,
Pastafarian, yeah. Celebrate Ramadan and all that stuff. Yeah, that's real. Somebody made that up. It's very funny. So that's that one is I just take a topic and let's kind of do a deep dive the way every podcast does and do that, and then I do a horror movie podcast called They're Coming to Get You. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. One of my producers is for Lincoln Project is a horror movie guy. Has done a lot of different work, but he's also like an expert on the history of it as well.
Yeah,
and it's a fascinating area. I just had a bit in my head, but the MAGA zombie analogy is sometimes very close.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing of we've seen now if they were a big outbreak of anything, somebody's still going to go on spring break. They're going to be on the beach holding their neck and being like, no, I just have a fever for other.
That's a fake undead plague.
Yeah.
Big vaccine wants you to think you're turning into a ravenous hell creature that seeks to consume human brains, but it's a lie.
I'm still going to Applebee's. I know there's a lockdown, but we're going to Applebee's because I have to. I need to.
So I want to go back for 1 second. As you watch these people Are you seeing any change in the tone in the last couple years? Because I'm going to tell you why I'm asking this question. Because the other day I was in a focus group, or watching a focus group, and a woman said on the focus group, says, "Well, in 2016, I didn't want anybody to know I'm voting for Trump, but I'm still a Republican. I can't tell anybody, but I'm not voting for Trump this time." Are you seeing any kind of change in the water temperature out there with the MAGAs, or are we, or do we just see the craziest of the crazy rise to the top?
Yeah, I think on that point of the craziest of the crazy, that's all we kind of focus. Nobody wants a middle of the road opinion. We have to showcase the extremes, so of course we're going to see all that stuff, and it's also, that's the most fun to watch. Nobody, sure. It's we have a sensible opinion that kind of incorporates the best of everything. Everybody's like, that's not fun. I want to see a guy lose a shit in a car, you know.
Right.
Like, I do think people are either not voting for him, or they're gonna, pretend like they do, and then will. But then we've had people just be like, "Yeah, I voted for Biden last time. I'm going to vote for Trump this time." I'm like, that's like a big extreme, like,
right,
to me. But
where'd that come from?
Yeah, it's I don't know. Do you feel the same way? Like, do you feel like there?
I think there are not a ton of Biden to Trump voters. I think there are a good number of Trump voters who are now kind of play acting it. Like, they don't want to be the first one of their friend group to say, "I'm done." They'll keep it up, and I am seeing like fewer Trump, and I live in North Florida. I don't live in DC or New York. I live in North Florida, so I'm in a red area. I'm in a very, very, very red area. I'm seeing a lot fewer Trump flags on the back of the trucks. They brought the truck nuts back out of storage and put those back on.
Yeah, well, it's not cold anymore. They're not going to shrink.
Right. It's never cold here, but I am seeing some of that stuff seems to have dropped down a level. Like, it's not as in your face. The ones who are still in your face, man, they are in your face. Because everything, it's always like, Joe Biden is a pedophile cannibal who goes under a pizza restaurant with Hillary Clinton and worships Satan and drinks adrenochrome. I'm like, yeah, breathe.
That whole stuff is very interesting. The QAnon conspiracy aspect. It's very interesting to me, because like at a certain point, it's just moving goalposts. Of like, it was supposed to, just keep watching. Something's going to happen next week.
The storm is coming.
Yeah, but then something doesn't happen. They'll be like, well, that was supposed to be that way. It's like a choose your own adventure with conspiracies.
Right, right, exactly. Right after Trump lost in 2020, I made some joke, and I said, well, I guess I didn't get shipped off to Gitmo, and some Trumper was like pissed off at me about it. And then another one responded, "He looks so different now. He's a clone." Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty funny. I thought that was somebody being funny." And then I clicked on the profile. I'm like, "Oh my God. He really thought that. He thinks that's true."
Yeah.
I mean, there is, I mean, has Trump like broken people's brains so much they just stop believing in facts? Because a lot of these people that you very, very ably imitate and riff off of, they really have a whole bunch of stuff in their head that is not true.
Yeah, and the thing is, I guess the question is, when we have to look at it in hindsight, was that Trump, or was that kind of there, and they just needed
activated
push? Yeah, there's no shortage of crazy in the world, but especially in our country,
Yeah, no. We're full up, lady.
Yeah, and some people, I think a lot of it comes out of being lonely or isolated. Like, there's a good documentary that I covered on the field trip, but it's called Beyond the Curve or Behind the Curve. It was on Netflix when we talked about it, but it's a flat earther documentary. And in that documentary is like, people thought the earth was flat, and then they get so hyper fixated on it, then that's all they talk about. Then their family cuts them off. Then their friend group and their family group become the flat earth people. And at the end, this is spoiler, they kind of debunk and say, "Oh, the earth is not flat." And they're like, "Well, we must have done the experiment wrong." People don't want to, it's like those people that we were just talking about, of the Trump people that are going to maybe vote for
Right.
somebody else. They can't say I was wrong and go back on what they just said, or they've also alienated themselves so much that they, unless you're part of a flat earth people, you're not gonna, there's nobody to hang out with. Your family's not there anymore.
I think that's right. I think there is a sort of like disappearance of all the other social structures they used to have around them. And because, and COVID's part of that, but it's also like modern life. It's people are on their phones. They're not out bowling or going to the Rotary Club or anything else anymore. It's become very internal, which I think is look, that's where you and I both exist in a lot of ways. We're on people's screens a lot. Okay, that's great. But I do think it's important for people to still like keep some calibration in there and keep their lives in perspective. So
yeah, I think the phrase is touch grass.
Touch grass.
Go
Exactly.
outside and talk to a real person.
Exactly. Well, listen, Brent, I appreciate you coming on the show today. We will post up on the show notes your links. But folks, you can find Brent at his website, which is Brent Comedy, and on his Insta and every other platform, from what I can tell, at Brent, Brent Terhune, Terhune. And that, folks, wraps up this episode of The Enemies List. And Brent, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, good to talk to you, man. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thanks.